when it's intentional, we become the person that we want to be by exploring and touching and tasting. But
Mhm.
it's like when it gets into this place, which I've now seen in high judgment, it's
Mhm.
so ironic. I'm like, we cannot be playing the spiritual card and then be the most judgmental people of all.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome or welcome back. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time. I have a special guest on the show today, on a video today. This is my good friend Jacqueline. And some people who are loyal followers to my channel, watchers of my channel, may know you just from the story of me living in your haunted house for like 9 months or so, and just sort of some of the experiences that I had there. I have a whole video on it. I can post a link to that video in the description or in this video later on. The house is still haunted, and I don't know if it ever won't be. Maybe, hopefully. I mean, maybe you'll get there, but
Not enough sage to take it out, honestly.
yeah, no, I cleansed it a lot when I lived there. So, yeah, but I mean, it was pleasant hauntings. It wasn't really ever scary. So, yeah.
Just a little
Um,
lighthearted ghosting around, no big
yeah,
deal.
it really was. Like it was a laugh that I heard, and then, I mean, some uncomfortable feelings that other people had, but like a lot of that discomfort comes from just of the unknown rather than like something malevolent, something evil or whatever. So it definitely wasn't evil, but it was still haunted nonetheless. So that was a fun time. Um, and so I will say we didn't talk about this just now when we were kind of going over what we were going to talk about, but this just came to me for other people who've watched some of my videos. I had talked about um, like us reconnecting as friends as a part of like my wealth magic journey, because it just so happened that like we reconnected when I started that book and stuff back in like 2019. And then really reconnected when I was doing it again. And that like you've been a big support and influence and just my whole like growth over the last couple years. And so I love and appreciate you for all that. And so for anyone that's seen those videos, I'm just shouting out to my good friend here to make her known and appreciated by all who watch this video. So
You feel
um
loved. It's such an honor to be part of your journey
yay, yeah, and yours too. I'm happy to be doing this with you. So
and to have somebody to listen to my 20 voice notes.
no, yeah, definitely. I mean, and you equally listen to mine, and I appreciate that. So, and part of the reason, or the main reason that we're really sitting here right now, about to make a video and talk about whatever weird shit we talk about, is because we talk all the time about stuff, anything that like is related to my YouTube channel, spirituality, energy, magic, sometimes ghosts, what we get out there. And lately there'd been some topics that we've been discussing that we felt would be beneficial to be shared with the collective, or just with, more people. And so that's why we are here today. I think since we did just have this recent eclipse going on, this like total solar eclipse, um, we're gonna just start off with some of the energy that both of us have been feeling. And then in my last video, Arjuna and I talked about that a little bit. So if anyone hasn't seen that, and are interested in the eclipse and the energy at this time, that's also a good one to go listen to. But what were your sort of most prominent feelings or observations or sensations just around this time and before and after?
I think I actually tend to downplay these kinds of events leading up to them, and I live in a super quiet, introspective way in this chapter, and so I was able to force my reality to like be really quiet and not eventful leading up to the eclipse. But everybody that I know is affected by that energy in a super deep way. And usually it looks like things falling apart in my experience, like things like not working or just like not lining or whatever. But for me, I wasn't expecting to have such like a powerful and connected and deep feeling when the actual eclipse crossed over. And I also don't think I've actually witnessed an eclipse of that caliber, like
Mm-hmm.
for that amount of time in totality. So it really like it was really like a wholesome connected feeling for me, and I felt so open-hearted, and I like started dancing to the mood, and I just felt like we talked about this, like how you know how small you feel in existence in that moment, but how beautiful it is.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so beautiful, and even like the frat bro kind of individuals that were next to me were like, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," and I was like, "I know."
It really was beautiful.
Yeah, and like I didn't feel like I said, like my life was not falling apart by any means before this. It was like I was relaxed about it, but I did feel this sense of relief, like a pressure
Mhm.
that I did not know was there following the eclipse.
Mm,
Everything has just it's felt like dust settled, even though there was nothing eventful going on before. So I don't know what exactly that is, but I am like
interesting.
in attunement to that energy.
Yeah.
And my bleed came moments after the eclipse, and it was
Yeah.
and
That is interesting.
that's beyond me. That's divine
That's
creation.
some alignment or something. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm. I like how you said what you said about like the relief that you feel because I think that I feel that too now that you mention it or have been feeling it. And I think a lot of that is like just sort of the down, like, after, like you said, the dust has settled and there was such a buildup to this whole event, like for months, it felt like people were talking about it, people were traveling for it, preparing for it, just doing, I don't know how many people stocked up on groceries or whatever in the like popular places. Um, which I didn't experience any sort of strangeness at the grocery store. I mean, I wasn't in Texas or like, I mean, but this there was still like a path of totality here, I think, and um, but it's almost like I don't know, like you're waiting for this thing to happen, and then it happens, and it's just the anticipation around it that gets people so like energized, I think, and like whether positively or negatively, because there are a lot of people, like the more people that I started talking to about the eclipse, the more I would hear from some friends like, oh, people are freaking out about this eclipse, and like eclipse have bad histories and shit's been going on, and I mean, I don't necessarily think that the eclipse did that much to my physical life, or really. Um, but I definitely felt like the collective energy, and I don't know. I think maybe there's just like a sigh of relief from people that witnessed the eclipse that like nothing happened, I mean, yes, the eclipse happened, but like I don't know how many people were waiting for like the government to do something or some shit to go crazy, but probably a lot, and it didn't happen, we're still here. Um and and now it's just, going on to another day, but that energy is still carried out, and I like that you said, you've sort of felt connected to everybody around you, and I felt the same like when I went to go look at it and stuff, just because, and I felt that kind of trickling energy since then, is just feeling very connected to being a human and to the rest of humanity, and recognizing myself as not separate, but as like we're all experiencing, we're all just little humans watching the moon go in front of the sun, for X amount of time. And it's humbling in a sense, because you feel like powerless. Like we're really just like on this rock here, and there's two giant like celestial bodies in the sky right now doing something cool, and all the humans that are in its path are gathering to see it, you
Mhm.
know and if something were to happen, bad or good, like we'd all be affected in one way or another. So it's interesting energy. And they are there is an energy to it. I was listening to the animals too, because I was outside during the eclipse. And I know my cat and Bella, which if people watch my channel, they know Bella. Bella. um she and the other cat here were like meowing when it got really dark, I think. And then when I was outside watching the eclipse, like the animals were very quiet. I noticed. And then there were a couple seagulls when it got really dark that were like really whatever, making noise. Um, but I don't know. It was almost like watching it like I was high but not high, but it was just this strange observational state of being. So, um I don't know how many people pay attention to the energy of these things. I mean, I'm sure a lot do, especially in like the spiritual community. But I think the most relevant thing is that it's supposed to be illuminating um shadows, I guess, or what's been in the shadow. And this sort of takes me to our next point of of what I also kind of touched on in the last video I did with Arjuna, and what some other spiritual people have been talking about, is like shining light on fake spirituality and fake fake news, for lack of a better term. But just people who are putting on masks, or because Bella's gonna want to jump up here in a sec. There's this program or something running that with new age topics, and even with like witchcraft, like in social media, where it's being popularized. And um and it's like the authenticity isn't there. And you and I have been talking about this for a while, and then somebody that we follow on Instagram mutually, who's in the spiritual community, was mentioning it. um what are your thoughts and observations on what's going on with pop spirituality, and just how it's sort of being used against us in a way, or being trying to be manipulated as such?
Such a good question. I think that anything can be sort of used as a mechanism of more distortion, and it's requires a certain level of development, evolutionary development, emotional development, spiritual development, meaning like self-awareness and life experience, and I don't know, just a certain degree of like understanding yourself. It takes all of this discernment to be able to assess every situation as it comes. And I saw myself in that exact sort of downfall of wanting to be saved by this thing that I finally thought was the thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
which is so exciting. Like, as somebody who's lightly studied various, what's up, Bella?
Yeah.
She's like, it's my time to shine, y'all.
Yeah.
Like, I've lightly studied, a few religions and gathered what I like from them, and this and that and the other. And with the like metaphysical yoga meditation journey, it's a lot of like choosing your own adventure, at least it has been for me. And so it was super easy
Mhm.
to get directed into the pop spirituality trends online.
Mhm.
And we heavily rely, I think, on the internet for our community
Mhm.
now more than ever, especially post COVID. It's
Mhm.
just so ingrained in us, and it's so early on for that to be happening in the well, I can not get on that tangent.
Mhm.
Like, like in the frame of technology. So I just saw myself go down that path, and I saw myself putting all of my faith and hope and trust into something outside of myself, removing my
Mhm.
connection with my divinity and my knowing, and removing my ability to discern and decide what that is for me. And yeah, like one of the things that I even make fun of myself for this is like, are your clothes like
Mhm.
more like identifying you so that you can be seen a certain way more so than you just being in that frequency authentically.
Mhm.
Is the language that you're using really yours? Are you just like
Mhm.
borrowing everything from, and that's okay. It's okay because that's how we try things on,
Yeah.
and we are constantly shifting in our evolution and how we want to be seen and experienced by others, and we sort of become, when it's intentional, we become the person that we want to be by exploring and touching and tasting. But
Mhm.
it's like when it gets into this place, which I've now seen in high judgment, it's
Mhm.
so ironic. I'm like, we cannot be playing the spiritual card and then be the most judgmental people of all. Like
Yeah.
that's unacceptable to me. So I'm super sensitive to that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's in general kind of like what I've seen. What about you? How's your experience been with that?
Yeah. Pretty similar. The thought going through my head right now is what we saw in Eisen's post recently, where it was like the world needs less breathwork facilitators and more truth tellers, or something like that. And I was just like, applause, like, yes. I mean, I feel like everybody nowadays is doing it to make a buck, like, and I'm also thinking of some people that we both know personally that I won't name any names, um, who are just a little bit fake, I think, in their, I don't know, like, just so you know who I'm talking about. The one whose boyfriend is friends with Aubrey Marcus. Yeah. And not anything against them, but and we're not perfect humans either. I'm not saying that or anything. But I almost like I don't know either of them very well, but I see them and other people who I come across one way or another, and then I see that they're like a leader in the community in some way, like, like having some service, connecting inward, like whether it's breath work or something, but it I don't know, it just feels more inauthentic in a lot of people. And I'm not just referring to them anymore, but like I remember I was I messaged you a while back, and I don't know who is watching this that might know Elizabeth April.
Mhm.
And I mean, she goes way out there with her video topics and stuff. But I remember I had clicked on her website and I saw that she had like a find your love workshop or something. And I was like, I was just so turned off because I was like, why is this so many people? I mean, I don't know. This is me being a little maybe judgmental but it's like so many people are selling these things now, and it's like, who are you? Like, why are you qualified to do this? And maybe they are qualified to do it, but my reaction to what I'm seeing is almost like a deterrent. Like I'm being deterred rather than being invited. And not that they're deterring me, but it's just I keep seeing the same things popping up, and I keep seeing like trending on TikTok. Like I mean, I'm not even on TikTok really, but I know there's like witch talk and there's probably spiritual talk and stuff. And people just like have some crystals and they have some um whatever, like props and stuff, and it's being
Speaking of
glamorized.
props, I'm gonna light some.
Yeah. I mean, I do have mine right here, so yeah. But it's just being glamorized in a way that it makes me think of religion in the sense that, like, there is a deeper truth to religion, and at its core, they all have similar truths anyways. And but then there's people that go there, like Christianity, for example, and then they're judgmental of others who aren't Christian or whatever. And they're not actually there for like the deeper connection. It's there to make themselves feel good and to be seen a certain way. I mean, it's hard to know who to trust on the internet nowadays. And and in a way, it's helped my spirituality because it's making me go more inward. Like we all have heard maybe that like the answers are inside us, or everything that we seek is inside of us. And if we truly believe that like we are connected to the divine, then we are God, in a sense, God, universe, source, whatever, then we don't really need all these other facilitators. um I don't it's kind of hard to put words on, I mean, I know Eisen articulated it so well. um but it's just there's so much of a show to it, and I just wonder how many people are actually like doing the work, I guess, or like you said, or are they just dressing this way to have a certain identity? And I mean, yeah, that does help. Like you find yourself by trying out certain things, like you said. But it's just you have to be really discerning nowadays, I feel like. And for people who are new, into spirituality or into magic or into any sort of spirit, even a religion, even we're not really talking about religion, but anything, like there's so much you could so easily get pulled down like the wrong path. And sort of tying back to the eclipse, I was like, the eclipse, the symbolism of the eclipse is like illuminating what's been in the dark. And in a way, like more is coming out now, and not just with us and not just with Eisen, but even with like the sacred um sister or this sisterhood stuff that like I've just sent you, where that one girl is talking about like how they claim and teach one thing, but really like there there's no backing, or like okay, to be a little more crude with it, how all these like divine feminine women are really like sleeping with each other when they're promoting this like polarity of like having a masculine man and finding that inner feminine. Anyways, um and and all of these things are being like kind of coming to light, like people are kind of calling them out a little bit more. And this corner of spirituality that's trending or that's new age, I've also heard is like the government. I don't know if it's the government, everybody just blames shit on the government, but whoever's in charge.
It's an easy scapegoat. I mean,
it,
they
it, it,
are
it is.
corrupt, so
Yeah. um but it's like being implanted because they know that it's the next step in evolution, perhaps, but so that there's a way like this will trend authentically or inauthentically, but if we can, manipulate it to get people to focus on sort of like the illusion of it rather than the truth of it, then it's not really helping anyone, even if they feel like they might be helped. Does that make sense? Like
Mm-hmm.
if we're focusing on it's like a magician, not like an actual witch or wizard, but like a stage magician, like he looks like he's doing magic, but he's really just like doing something that you can't really see to make his magic work. I don't know. I mean, maybe so there's some good ones, but because I don't know how to do stage magic, but it's illusions. And so it's like if we can infiltrate people's spiritual paths, then there's a great sense of control to be gained there. And like I personally, all right, I'll pass it off to you in a sec, but I
No,
personally
you roll it. Go with
okay.
it.
I personally don't want to feel repelled from connecting with others. And I mean, yes, I'm an introvert. Yes, I like to isolate sometimes, but like, we're social creatures. Like we're here to learn from others. And yet when I see so many people saying the same thing or doing, like everybody has a retreat now, it seems like everybody has a course. And like some people do great with those courses. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have a course. I mean, I have a great friend who's making her own course right now, which I totally respect and support, but like there's just so many others out there. And my friend is very qualified, like and very I know her, she knows what she's doing, but there's so many others out there I just feel like are it's like the blind leading the blind a little bit. Um because I don't know, like, and everybody's different, so maybe the people that follow these things get something out of it, but I see some of these retreats that happen and I'm like, what did you get from this? I know like you have an experience that you were at right one time where you were at like a retreat or something and you didn't feel
Which was so good for me because it showed me that I was in that same savior cycle of like, oh, this is going to be the next thing that fixes my life right now. And it's like, no, no, that's not how this works. Even in spiritual, even though this isn't Christianity or Catholicism or some Buddhism, even like, it's like I put it on a pedestal.
hmm
And so like in reflection about that experience, I'm like, it was great to have that like sort of disillusionment. I don't know if that's a word. Um,
disillusionment, I
experience.
think.
Yeah, experience like early on so that I could turn around and recognize what my intentions really were. Because my intentions weren't really pure going into that experience if, I was putting all this pressure on what it was supposed to be for me. I
hmm
went in I went in with my own energetic leaks and that experience was exactly reflected back to me in perfect
hmm
divine orchestration. But
hmm
I think it's so fair to feel the way that you do about the retreats and the courses and the selling, and your and mine, our nervous systems are attuning so highly and refined and in a very refined way to authenticity because we're seeing everything so clearly, and it's such a powerful wisdom economy that's fueled by the promise of financial success
hmm
that everyone is strapped in and ready to go. This is the thing that, is taking over right now. And so I think that to be in our position is great. And then also, like, for the ones, I've chosen two coaches this year to help guide me through my next, healing stage. And they're both so different. And that's what I love about the way that I've developed, because now that I'm past the point of like, oh, this is what spirituality means, I can have a finance coach who's super masculine, but also very tapped into the heart. And then also have my wonderful, like, oracle, like, grandmotherly, loving, like, teaching me about divine union. And
Mm,
like having those both in tandem is just like so mind blowing. I think they're some of the most high level coaches I've ever witnessed. And
mm,
so, like, I see the value in it, and I love, like, if we could all just like see how ridiculous it is sometimes to
mm,
be, extracting our, um, yeah, like our life path wisdom and like from another source. If we could see like all of ourselves and like all of our savior stuff, but then also enter the course or conversation with a playful heart and be like, I'm just here to like show up and like let's do some yoga on the retreat. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it feels so heavy and it feels so forced, I think, on socials right now. So like I completely feel your heart and like what's going on. That's exactly what's freaking going on.
yeah, yeah, thank you. And yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how things evolve with like technology and, I mean, if there's not like a severe crash in technology in the next few years, just what happens. And I hope that people that are listening to this aren't necessarily getting, like or understanding what we're saying, because I know I don't talk a whole lot about like spiritual topics. Well, magic is essentially spiritual, but don't talk as much about like pop spirituality on my channel. But um, for those that are watching this, like hopefully you can see in your own way sort of what's going on, because the same could be said about like the magic community. There's all sorts of people out there that are making like videos and stuff, and that's great. Like it's great that this information is getting out there, but anybody can talk the talk. It's like, but can you really walk the walk too? Like, are you walking the walk? And and it's just, I feel so important to be discerning nowadays with with everything, but especially if it's something that's trying that is trying to lead you or helping your evolution, your own soul growth, essentially. um because there's a lot of just traps and a lot of easy ways to waste your money now. And and
We both done it. Like we both done it.
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Somebody tell me
yes.
my future, please.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, and I still sometimes, something creeps into me where I still feel compelled to like, should I spend my money on this next person to tell me what's going to happen in my life? You know, and it's like,
Sometimes you just run into people at the grocery store too that are like tapped in and you're like, oh, okay, like maybe I don't have to pay for this, you
yeah.
know?
Well, you've had a couple experiences like that, right? Like with your Uber passengers, and then also that lady from Dick's Last Resort.
Yes. That
Um,
lady, the dentist, I go and like have crazy spiritual conversations sometimes, like just like the most unexpected places. And that's when I know that God is working.
mm,
Like my definition is different than most of God, but that's when I know that it's working because as Dispenza says, it comes in the most unexpected way, the
yeah,
least expected way possible. And I actually wanted to mention something while I'm on
yeah.
this. So I'm looking at your Bashar shirt and I'm like, oh, like what would Bashar say about this?
Mm,
And one of my favorite concepts from that teaching is the permission slip. It's
mm,
like everybody has their own, like you're a human with your own desires and dislikes, and that's okay. And so when we actually just follow what permission slip teaching we like and absorb, like that's a natural that's like the natural route that it should take. And then when we step out and look at it from another kind of macro perspective, we can say, why is that in my, like, why is that in my path? Why is that the door that I want to open? And like
Mm.
looking at that, being okay that that is, you know, this the teaching that is resonating with us at that time. And then also being okay with growing out of it and saying, like, here's like a great way to look at it. It's like, am I am I overly seeking information from others through the method of courses in order to fulfill some freaking void?
Mm.
I actually just need to go sit and old school meditate,
Yeah.
like old school, and just watch what comes up, you know? And that
Yeah.
might be the answer. And I also, okay, I have one more thought.
Mhm.
Like, as we're talking about this, I'm like, how can people avoid this? You know, how can they have the discernment in the moment? And one thing that I've realized lately is that if I somatically get super excited about something, so much so that I forego like logical consideration, but it's like getting my nervous system like riled up or something. Like I'm like looking at something and reading about it and I'm like, oh, this is the next answer. If you just skip a bunch of beats, like it's always a bad idea. Like, I feel like it's
Yeah.
almost always something to like, okay, we need to breathe and take a moment and step away from the screen and then, you know,
Yeah. Step away
evaluate
from the screen. Yeah.
evaluate the need for this thing.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a wise thing to do. Yeah. So now to move on to sort of our next topic. I know that it is very easy for us to talk for hours on end, and when it's usually just the two of us on the phone or something or on Instagram videos, we do talk for hours on end. But I want people to enjoy this video and digest it, you know, in a shorter period than 2 or 3 hours. And so if you've made it this far into the video, first of all, thank you so much. I would love to hear anybody's comments and thoughts. If you are resonating with what we're saying, please let me know. If not, also please let me know just any of your thoughts, you know, just what you want to hear more of and all that. So but definitely thank you for watching this video and for supporting my channel if you are. So what I wanted to talk about now, which is a question I kind of like to ask most of the people that I have on my channel, which isn't very many right now, but that will change. Is just I mean, I have a spiritual channel, right? A spiritual and magical channel, and I bring people on who are also spiritually inclined and perhaps magically inclined in one way, shape, or form. So I would like to hear from you what prompted your spiritual experience or just what got you started on your spiritual journey. So dive into that however deeply you would like to go.
Cool. Okay.
Mm.
Well, as you know, I grew up in a super musical family. So already, like, that's just a unique experience. It's
Mhm.
just unusual to have classical music be like the centerpiece of the family unit.
Mhm.
But there was one relative that I was deeply influenced by in like metaphysics, dreams, aliens. We talked about meditation even a little bit when I was a kid. Like we talked about so much. And that's Lauren, as you know, my
Yeah.
stepdad.
Mhm.
And he introduced Joe Dispenza into the family when I was like 9 or 10 because we
Wow.
watched What the Bleep Do We Know? Yeah, What the Bleep Do We Know when I was a kid.
Mm.
So I'm hearing about concepts like law of attraction and just like stuff that I don't know anything about, but I'm like really curious about it. And that's such a wonderful, impressionable time. Again, I was going to private school, so everybody was like Christian or Catholic
Mhm.
and super indoctrinated. And like I would go to school and my friends would tell me what their idea of hell was like. And I would be like, well, what do you think existence would be like on another planet? Like, do you think we go anywhere when we dream? Like, you know, and I was like 15 trying to like reading books about astral projection, trying to figure it out with my logical mind, you know, like so funny.
Mhm.
So I think it started there. And then I had like a chapter of just like deep rebellion from the life that I had created thus far. So in my like late teens, early 20s, I like was really locked into the 3D and pushing my boundaries and limits of my identity up to that point. So although it wasn't like classic spirituality, there was an evolution at play in, yeah, in how I was developing and forming as a young adult. And then um I could talk about psychedelics, but I'm gonna forego that because that's I feel like that's the obvious
It's
like
welcome
thing.
here if you want. So.
Like everyone's life has some sort of like, well, maybe not everyone's, but most people have some sort of experience with that. And mine was no exception. I mean, I think being in altered states of consciousness and seeing the world through different lenses like that can really be eye-opening, and it forces the channel open to an extent. And if you're not really prepared to take that on, like I wasn't at the time, it can be too much. I think like the really important stage of my spirituality was when I stepped into, I think I was prioritizing meditation. I must have been in my early 20s, and I went to Los Angeles, and my dad had passed like in March of that year. So I moved in like September, and somebody in my life at the time introduced me to Yogananda. So
Mm.
I was like already familiar with a lot of Dispenza's work and a little bit of like Eastern meditation and yoga and stuff like that. And I was doing a lot of silent meditations, but I hadn't experienced the self-realization fellowship to the extent that I did later. And it was just really, really beautiful. It was so welcoming. It was like a church environment that I never experienced. There was beautiful music. I would go in and meditate, and most of the people there were like 60 to 80 years old, and I was like 22 or 23, and it was just so like welcoming, like I said, warm. Wholeness is coming to mind, like
Mm.
wholesome, like really like. And I know there's some stuff about every, every religion and group, there's always some crap about something, but like truly it was a beautiful experience for me to be in nature and at these ashrams and temples, and I really dove in, and it was so healing for me to be doing these longer format meditations while I was grieving the death of my father that I really didn't know very well, like didn't feel like I didn't have a connection with very well.
Mm.
And now this chapter has been more of like Bashar and Abraham Hicks, and going to retreats for sure, and seeing the channeling live is like such a thrilling experience for me.
Yeah.
So that's been a really fun part, but it hasn't been as like, it's been quiet, and I think it's been integrating. I think it's been
Mm.
shadow work in the sense of like really going through the mud and quieting down and
Mm.
really just, yeah, focusing. So it's
Yeah.
been like a little bit all over the place. Nothing like super classic, nothing rich in history, but it's my own. And yeah, like I'm excited to see what comes next because it's been kind of unpredictable thus far for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, and it probably is deep in or how did you say, like deep in history or rich in, you said some term just then kind
I
of,
don't even know what I said.
yeah. And I mean, it is your own thing, but I think that from what I've heard of, your experiences, that there's still been maybe some like monumental or just profound, experiences. So not to like diminish their value or anything, even if it hasn't been like I don't know. I know you're trying to like compare it to something like hugely big, but maybe it was hugely big.
Yeah,
Um,
like I wasn't at a temple for like 10 weeks, like with Buddhist monks,
yeah,
like
right.
that's insane.
But that's also, kind of what we were talking about earlier is defining spiritual, being discerning and defining spirituality in your own way. And like that's also maybe another like false message. I mean, and not that it's not a spiritual thing to go to a temple and sit with Buddhist monks for X amount of time, you know, and like I would personally love to go to like Tibet and just go there. I think I have a past life connected to that. Not official, like no proof yet, but maybe I'll find out in my journey. But you know, it is a spiritual thing to do that, but it's also a spiritual thing to, you know, to love my cat, you know, and just like little things. I mean, it there's so much importance placed on things that I mean that do hold a lot of influence, I suppose, you know, that stem usually from like religion, like those spiritual experiences. But really like it can be defined like everyone's journey is unique to them, you know. And yes, there are like some similarities in usually the process of how it goes. Like usually it's some sort of traumatic event or something that makes somebody question a lot of things, or there's some sort of catalyst that really begins one's spiritual journey, you know, whether it's like a strong feeling of despair, of lack of identity, whatever the case may be, you know, or if it's a loss, or if it's, you know, it could be so many things, but it's usually when the soul or something inside of us is like crying out for help of some sort, of something greater than us, you know. I mean, sometimes it comes after like perhaps we've tried, you know, to take our own lives in extreme settings or something, you know. And then that's how, and that's something that I really like, I really enjoy about people who are so strong in their faith, whether it's spirituality or whether it's even like a religion. I mean, I know one of the most influential ladies, women in my life. She's like in her 70s, and she's just been such a support for me since like college, so like 10 years ago or so. And on and off. And she is just so strongly Christian, you know, like she that is what she follows, but like she walks the walk, you know, like she loves unconditionally, you know, she has gone through these traumas in her life, but always comes back to God, and she doesn't, you know, like judge others for not believing in her God, you know, like for her, God is love. And yes, she reads scripture, and yes, she does that, but like that's what works for her, and that's great, you know. Um, but I know, like, just knowing her personally, I know that she's had a very hard life in a lot of sense. Like, she's lost a daughter, you know. I mean, and other things. I won't get into like her whole thing, but I know that like from the spiritual community, you know, from some of the people that I've met back in Texas, and even just like pretty much everybody, you know, I meet who really dives into their spiritual journey or magical journey or religious journey or something, is some sort of big life event has usually happened that has led them there. You know, I don't know many people that were born into a certain faith and just, you know, drank the Kool-Aid and really came to authentically believe it. And still, I mean, sure, some, but then I, it's, you know, it's a little bit of that, like, how much of that is like, you know, are you being fed what to say, or is this actually coming from your own heart, you know? Um, and so I think there's a level of, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a level of respect that I have for people who can stand strong in their faith regardless of what it is. And to have tolerance, like love and tolerance for others who don't share that same faith. And yeah, and um I mean, it doesn't matter what you look like, who you are, whatever. Like if you know, and so I almost got chills when I was like talking about my friend earlier. So I just like to know, you know, I like to see how people are led there. And so I think my point being, I guess, that part of the journey usually has a similar sort of outline. And then, you know, you there's but so does all of life, right? Like it just undulates. And I like that you said, like you mentioned the sort of the phase you're in now, or the stage you're in now, where it's like a lot of shadow work and things are integrating. Um and I think I can relate to that to an extent, you know, like I I have like my magical journey too, which I guess is my kind of my spirit, well, it is my spiritual journey too. And I don't usually talk about shadow work on this channel, which maybe that would be a good topic to go into another time too, is shadow work.
Didn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what's been happening for me lately is just integration of so many things that I've learned. And but it's like it's almost like I'm starting to see physical manifestations of things that I've, I guess, manifested, you know, but that have been building up until that point. And I don't know. I mean, it's I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I'm constantly feel like I'm learning, you know, it's just learning different things on my journey, like throughout the process. And um, you know, right now, like I'm reading the Book of Enoch and I'm reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but I'm also taking Spanish lessons and doing jujitsu and you know, so it's like I run occasionally. I hate running, but I make myself run, you know. So and these are all things that are beneficial to my growth. And I mean, yes, I still do magic here and there. And these all these things serve a purpose. And along the way, like I connect with others who, I don't know, I like that I connect with people who are also spiritually inclined. Like I think it's really interesting. Sorry if I don't know, I feel like I just kind of rambled for about nothing for the last for those
Bring it.
minutes, but okay.
Bring it. I
Um
can bring us back. I have something slightly relevant.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you wanna, I'll pass it off to you. Yeah.
You said something about trust or faith,
Mm.
regardless of the system that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the permission slip that we take to
Mm.
get there. That is such an important piece to come back to, and it's so grounding in this fucking crazy, chaotic human experience, um, to fall back on that. And I have examples in my life of people who don't have that and who do have that. And
Mm.
what I always come back to is, even if, and I take everything with a grain of salt, everything. I mean, I wake up every day and I'm like, I don't know, is it, is any of this like, am I just like, we could all just be imagined, you know?
Yeah.
But the step that is after that is, does it make life better? Does it make life easier? Does it make me more successful in life? Does it make me like how I show up better? Are all of these aspects building me in the way that I want to, you know, exist and coexist with others? And one of the like pivotal turning moments for me in the lesson of trust was reading this quote with a handle of tequila in one hand and a cigarette in the other, by Eckhart Tolle in A New Earth. He says, "The universe will give you whatever experience is the most helpful to the evolution of your consciousness."
Mm.
The universe will give you whatever experience is the most helpful to the evolution of your consciousness. And when I read that, I was just like something in me shifted deeply. I was like really young. And I read it like 30 more times. And I was like, this will be my mantra until I have a new one because this is speaking so deeply to me because
Mhm.
it reinforced what you said, like coming back to trust and coming back to faith. And that's why these phrases like everything happens for a reason are so popular. That's why the cliche remains is because
Mhm.
it's so relevant to everybody's experience here. So
Yeah.
I wanted to like wrap that in a nice little package because I think it was such a beautiful point that you made.
Yeah, thank you. And that is a beautiful quote too that Eckhart Tolle wrote. Everything happens for a reason. So, oh, that is so true. And the difference though that I've recently realized is that we have more control over that than we've ever been told, because most
Mhm.
people are just running old programs. And by the law of cause and effect, yes, everything happens for a reason. Like, I pour this water on my desk. My desk is wet, and I get wet because I poured the water. Like there's a cause and an effect. That's a bad example, but but like if I take a certain action, there will be a reaction. And so many people take unconscious actions and then get reactions that they don't like or that they don't want to manifest and stay in that. But more and more people, and this is why, tying back to the beginning again, why we need more like truth tellers and more like actual genuine people waking up to realize I can really create whatever I want, like I keep forgetting the quote that you just said like three times, but I
It's kind
can.
of no, it's kind of a mouthful. The universe will give you whatever experience is the most helpful to the evolution of your consciousness.
Okay, yes. Yeah. And so that quote too, like just because the universe provides something also doesn't mean that we choose to receive it. So like these, yes, the universe can provide things that are beneficial to the help of our consciousness, but I can choose to, like, whether I'm conscious of it or not, to like not see it at all and to keep on doing what I've been doing and then complain about that or whatever, and then to be like, oh, poor me, why isn't anything happening that I want or whatever. But and so it's up to us to really be mindful and aware enough to see these things, to be connected, to see the universe, to see these things as lessons, even if it's something that is hard or tough, like even if it's a what is perceived as a shitty experience or a negative experience, but on the other side of that there is growth and there is evolution for the soul, you know and that could be something so terrible. It could be like a death of somebody close to you. It could be something that bad. And then, but how is that going to shape you later on? And I bring it back to my friend, the Christian lady that I was talking about earlier. She's like in her 70s, but she lost her daughter years ago now. But she talks about that now, and she's like, well, that experience made me who I am today. And she's just so strong in her faith with it, and she's like, no, it was all part of like God's plan. Like she just has found so much acceptance and peace with it. And at the time, how I'm sure it's hard to say, like, how is this working for me? Like it's happening to me, right? Like this bad thing is happening to me, but really we just have to use our mind's eye, I guess, and open our hearts to see these things and to take these chances, even if it's scary, or to work through it. So yes, the universe provides whatever is needed for our soul's evolution, but we have to be open to receiving it. We have to be aware of it, and we have to take the action that will allow it to unfold in our life. And so many people, whether or not they're even aware of that, I feel like just don't I don't know, maybe don't see it, don't do it, don't believe that, whatever. I mean, not everybody is a spiritual person, you know, so everyone's experience is different, but I have found that to be completely true with my current like life, you know, like being in a new state and everything. And like I think about stuff like that, and I think about like the baby that I nanny, and I think about like doing jujitsu and these ways that I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And I never thought that I liked babies, you know, but this baby, I have developed such a love for this little baby that he is just,
It's so cute.
he's so cute. I love him so much. You know, he's just a little guy and a little baby. And you know, I don't know what part of me needed him in my life at this time, but I definitely think that it is what I need. Like, and his parents too, just like the whole alignment of that job, you know, and it's exactly right, you know, and I'm at the point now where I'm receiving these things, you know, because that's what I wanted. And there have been times where I'm not receiving them, or I'm not seeing it. So anyways, I digress. But um I think that is, yes, a hugely important quote, but there's still work and action on our part to open ourselves up to receiving and accepting and being discerning and staying true to ourselves and all of that, and loving others. There's a lot to do,
There's
so
a lot to get
yeah.
done.
um but yeah, so I think that was probably a good place to sort of wrap up. Did you have any other points that you wanted to make or anything?
I
No.
don't. We could talk
Cool.
for 8 more hours though. So
I
like,
know, I know. Yeah. So, but we should we
yeah,
will we
we'll
will
close it
divide and
here.
conquer. So we'll come back for another video. But thank you so much. I'm so glad that you came on to do this. I've been looking forward to this all day. I hope that anyone that made it this far in the video, like, was driving with what we were saying. You know, I hope we made some good points. I hope we didn't. I don't think we got too far out there this time. Sometimes we can go pretty far out there. So
Yeah, woo-woo with it. Yeah.
we'll go down some different rabbit holes in upcoming videos. But I love you so much,
So fun.
and
Love you too. This is so cool, and it felt so right to like record one of our conversations and be intentional
yes,
about the space. So thank you for having me on. I'm
of
so
course.
proud of you and your channel.
Thank you, thank you. I'm happy to have you on here, and you will be back. So it's not the last time people will see you. So.
Sounds
But
good.
thank you guys for watching this video and tuning in. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I recently have a members section and stuff, so I will be setting that up in another video, so you don't have to watch this at the end of this video, and I'll make a shorter video that announces all of that. So anyways, as always, guys, stay kind, stay curious. Thank you so much, and until next time.